The Damian Lillard drama is over. He has ended up in Milwaukee as a result of a 3-team trade involving both Phoenix, Portland, as well as Milwaukee. Let's just talk about this deal. Now, over the last couple of days, the idea of Dame in Milwaukee had gained some traction. I actually tweeted yesterday, the day of this recording is the day that the Dame trade happened. The day before the Dame trade happened, I put out this construction of what a Dame to Milwaukee trade would look like. It would always involve Jrue Holiday, some kind of assets. I actually had Toronto involved in this one as well. And then this is what the actual trade looks like today. It is Lillard going to Milwaukee, Jrue Holiday, DeAndre Ayton, Kamara, a 2029 unprotected Milwaukee first, and swap rights in 28 and 30 going to Portland, while Phoenix is getting Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, and Keon Johnson. That is an unbelievably complicated trade, but first, let's talk about this for Milwaukee. The reason why this started to get some traction over the last couple of days for them is, one, it satisfies Damian Lillard's need to go to a contending team. It became clear that Portland wasn't that excited about trading Dame to Miami, and Miami maybe was starting to look at other plans into the future in terms of trades and free agency options that they'd like to explore more than just going and trying to get Dame. And so Milwaukee started to make sense as a team that could use an upgrade on their roster, could use an improvement to their offense, and made sense for Damian Lillard in terms of a destination where he can go to and he can win titles. And more importantly, this is something that I've been talking about a lot with Milwaukee lately. They kind of needed a change up with this group. They bring back Middleton, they bring back Lopez this year. Giannis is starting to get a little bit antsy in terms of looking to potentially go elsewhere. They've done this once before, ironically, with Jrue Holiday himself, making a big-time trade like this to keep Giannis happy. They won a title as a result, and now they bring in Damian Lillard to hopefully solve their Giannis problem. And in terms of cost to them, it cost them Jrue Holiday, which for cost, in terms of salary matching reasons, Jrue Holiday was always going to be involved in the trade. They always were going to be doing a Dame for Holiday swap while adding assets, and the improvement in their starting lineup, and more specifically their offense, was going to cost them extra stuff outside of just Jrue Holiday, which in this case means Grayson Allen and then a 2029 unprotected first, as well as swap rights in 28 and 30. And it's really difficult to overstate how much those assets mean to Portland moving forward. They're going to move Jrue Holiday somewhere else. They're going to get stuff for him. But the 29 unprotected and the 28 and the 30 pick swaps, I would imagine, are what put Milwaukee over the top and allowed Portland to go ahead and press forward with this deal. Because even though you're assuming that they're going to be awesome and Dame is going to want to be there and Giannis is going to want to stay and they're going to, potentially compete for titles, Giannis could leave in a few seasons. And 29 unprotected first and 28 and 30 swaps for a Portland team that might be pretty good, in a couple of seasons, that is a massive amount of value for Portland, and arguably those are the most valuable picks on the board, because it's a team that, yes, will be good for the next couple of seasons, but a 2029 first round pick is years from now. It continually limits what Milwaukee's able to do in terms of their draft picks and that they can trade in the future. They're set now in terms of salaries. They can't really add to their team, and a possibility still exists that this doesn't go well. Dame maybe isn't happy, or Giannis isn't happy long term, and he ends up leaving. Those are massive, massive picks for Portland to get in exchange. Having said that, I love this trade for Milwaukee. I think it's a B+, it's an A grade for them. The only reason it's not an A+ is because of the uncertainty with Giannis, but an upgrade offensively going from Jrue Holiday to Damian Lillard. The combination of ball screen actions you can do with that group, having that much spacing on the floor around Giannis, assuming that Chris Middleton and Brook Lopez are healthy, and defensively, it's a perfect infrastructure in which you can hide Damian Lillard's unwillingness to be a defender whatsoever with Middleton, Giannis, and Lopez. Yes, it hurts their depth. Yes, it hurts their future first-round picks. Yes, there's concerns about Giannis leaving. I love this deal for Milwaukee, and I'm so glad they stepped up and made the move. For Portland, this is certainly a bit of a risk on their part, because from a player's perspective, they could have done better in terms of future assets, in terms of guys they actually want to have on the roster. Having guys like Tyler Hero potentially be involved in the trade package would have been a big deal for them. But their mindset here is pretty clear. They wanted the future draft capital. They feel like they can get something out of Jrue Holiday. They're not going to bother trying to get a fourth team involved right now. They wanted to get this deal done, have Jrue Holiday. They can get stuff in exchange for him. Now, there's obviously the concern of him being a free agent next year and maybe not wanting to play that much longer. There have been retirement rumors with Jrue Holiday, so they're not going to get, 4 first-round picks. But him being available could potentially allow a team like Philadelphia to maybe solve their James Harden problem and get the Clippers, James Harden, Drew Holiday framework going here potentially. There's a lot here to like for Portland in terms of what they could get for Holiday, as well as the draft compensation. I don't love the idea of them getting rid of someone like Nasir Little, who I think is going to be good in Phoenix, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But getting back Ayton, who clearly is someone that they have coveted in this situation, I kind of understand that for them. Obviously, the contract is going to be a bit prohibitive, but they got young players, so they don't really care. And having a core of Ayton, who's good and should continue to improve, then you've got Scoot, you've got Shaedon Sharpe, you've got all these extra picks, you've got the opportunity to add more assets to your team with potentially trading Drew Holiday here pretty soon. I also think this is a really good deal for Portland, and I would also give them an A for this deal. And then we get to Phoenix before we kind of wrap up the whole thing and talk about, of course, the Miami of all this and this whole situation. Phoenix, to me, I was really confused about their desire to move Ayton to get back Jusuf Nurkic. Like that was a constant rumor, and that's exactly what happened here. And my assumption was that they would only do that if they were also going to be getting back rotation players. And they did exactly that. Nasir Little and Grayson Allen are going to play for this team. Grayson Allen as a perimeter spacer, Nasir Little as a two-way player. Those are two kinds of guys that they desperately needed on this roster, and that they didn't really have. They didn't have an elite role player shooter guy on the roster. They didn't have a, up and coming, potentially young, role player, rotation player wing for them over the next couple of seasons in Nasir Little. They needed those two kinds of players. And although Ayton to Nurkic in terms of what they're going to need is a significant downgrade, and I think Nurkic presents a lot of potential defensive issues for this Phoenix team, it rounds out their rotation in a really nice way. And so I'm going to give them a B+ for the deal. Now, when we're talking about Dame, we have to talk about Miami and all this, right? And it's really strange the way that this has worked out, the way that they didn't end up with their guy. Every time a trade request happens, the team that is kind of being forced, the guys forcing their way to that team, they always get their guy. But Miami, for whatever reason, backed off of the Dame thing, weren't willing to give up as many assets as Portland wanted. And at a certain point, Portland just decided, you're not going to go to Miami, figure out a different team. And that is where Milwaukee ultimately swooped in. I think that this is definitely a negative for Miami in terms of the fact that their roster got actively worse this offseason, losing Gabe Vincent, losing Max Strus. And once they didn't get Bradley Beal, it seemed like they were prioritizing the Dame thing. That didn't happen. And now, Miami's looking around wondering, we've tried to trade half our roster this offseason. And yes, we just made the finals, but we are significantly worse. Concerning day to be a Miami fan, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, what this comes down to in terms of how successful this will be for Milwaukee is Damian Lillard going to be happy? Can we protect him defensively? Can he stay healthy as he ages? And if all those things happen, a combination of Chris Middleton, Damian Lillard, Giannis at his peak, in addition to Brook Lopez as they continue to add, depth and veterans around this group, it is an absolutely terrifying team. I can get into that a little bit more on some of my other channels in terms of the actual on-court impact of having Damian Lillard on your team, in Milwaukee. Now, this is an unbelievable deal, and I'm just excited that it finally happened, and now we can finally figure out what all this is going to look like as the season gets started. What an awesome, awesome trade.